Welcome everyone, StealthyShiroean here, and today I'm bringing you my review of the Humble Choice bundle for July 2026. I think this one might look like a weak month to many at a glance, but rest assured, this is actually a really good month. Let me know what you think of this month's bundle in the comments below, be sure to check the timestamps for specific games, and stay tuned for my final thoughts in the end. Okay, let's get to the review. Starting off the review is Our Adventurers Guild, a dungeon crawling management game where you take the role of a guildmaster of an adventurers guild. Go figure. And this is one of those cases where you don't want to judge the book by its cover. At the outset, I wasn't really impressed with the fairly simplistic UI elements, the okay combat graphics, and the not so stellar portrait art. Obviously, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but it wasn't really doing it for me. However, Our Adventurers Guild's cool premise really sells the game. Each of the adventurers you hire all have their own stats and various traits that can affect how they manage in fights. Additionally, they have moods that need to be looked after lest you face debuffs on a quest, and they can form relationships with other adventurers that can also play a role, whether good or bad. It's a bunch of dynamic systems that all work together to further the gameplay and get you attached to the characters so that you feel pain deep in your gut when they end up dying in battle. Each quest takes your selected party of adventurers to an area to complete a specific task. In these areas are various events and interactables that may require a skill check roll a la Dungeons & Dragons, as well as loot to find. Additionally, every step the party takes allows the enemies to also move. And if you end up running into one of those baddies, then a turn-based battle starts on a separate battle map. The turn-based combat is very similar to something like Final Fantasy Tactics. There's various environmental features that could benefit adventurers and presumably enemies alike, as well as different height levels. Characters all have a set of unique abilities that can do things as would be typical in a game like this. It felt fun to play, and I think it could be really rewarding when you finally level up a character enough to get a neat build together. Overall, I definitely would like to return to this one in the future. Dicefolk is a turn-based dice battler roguelite. Many of you are probably already familiar with my dislike for these kinds of games, but Dicefolk is a roguelite done right. In Dicefolk, you control these monsters that fight for you. The dice decide what your little monsters can do. Additionally, each of these monsters tend to have a special ability that triggers when certain conditions are met, such as when attacked or if they rotate their position. Along with that, each monster can carry items that can further augment their stats or give them helpful buffs like a block. Shops can help you gain certain items and also change the faces of your dice. I really liked that it gave you some sort of ability to mitigate the RNG so it didn't feel overbearing. However, the unique aspect of Dicefolk is that you're not just deciding what your monsters will do on your turn, you're also deciding what the enemy does as well. And you're probably wondering, why would you ever have the enemy attack your monsters then? Well, there's more to it than that. A turn can only end when all enemy attack dice have been used. Other than that, you're free to decide the order in which the dice are played. So if you play your cards right, or dice in this case, you can sometimes line up decent combos that take minimal damage on your end, or cleverly working your way around a particularly horrible enemy effect. It's something that I haven't seen done before in a game and was really refreshing. I think the biggest critique I have for the game is that there is no undo button. There were several times I made my move and then realized in the moment there was a better execution of dice that could have been played. I guess that just teaches the player to pay more attention and think a bit. That said, I enjoyed my time with it and could see myself picking it back up in the future. It doesn't happen often, but once in a blue moon, I come across a game that I simply can't put one whole hour into. It rarely happens, but Sledders was one of those games. I put about half an hour into it before I decided that I had seen enough. And I wasn't really having fun with it, if that didn't come across. Sledders is a game that doesn't hide what it is at all. You choose your sled, which I assume have different stats to them, but I really didn't know. Then you select the map where you want to sled, and that's it. The Steam page literally says there's no races, routes, checkpoints, essentially no objectives whatsoever other than what you make yourself. And that's a big problem for me. I feel like I need at least something to be working towards. This game's only objective are the ones you make simply to do so. And that might vibe with some people. I tried to look at this like I was playing Descenders, a cycling game that I actually played a decent amount post-review back in September 2022. But without any objectives, of course. Just an open area to ride around and chill. Although, the only ambience you have is the whirring of the snowmobile. Which I get is probably exactly what you'd hear in real life, but I felt it was grating after a while. Then there's the controls. It's definitely going to take some getting used to if you want to play this game. Most of my opening minutes with it was stop-go as I continually got myself stuck in the snow and needed to respawn. And this was even on the beginning map. I was pretty frustrated with the game and considered just ending it there, but I found a setting to make the time of day fix to daytime so I could actually see, and this helped me figure things out more. Except, I never really felt like I was having fun. After I started figuring out the controls, such as leaning to adjust the weight on the machine in a turn, or trying to manage speed in high snowbanks, I just didn't really see the point. I think this game is definitely going to be for sledding aficionados, and not really anyone else. And that's if they're patient enough to master the controls rather than just jumping onto their own snowmobiles in real life. Needless to say, I won't be returning to these alpine slopes. We got another really interesting roguelike this month with Duchy that obviously blends Tetris with strategy and deck building. The concept is pretty refreshing, if a bit difficult. The idea behind it is that you place random blocks similar to Tetris and build out the land. You place things like forests, plains, and mountains. Sprinkled throughout the block deck are buildings that you choose, which can be production buildings like a farm or woodcutter's hut. Additionally, there are military buildings you've chosen, and possible enemy military buildings which also gain units and can potentially modify the lay of the land. Every row you complete nets your resources, which you can then use to upgrade your building cards. With that in mind, it may be tempting to just play Tetris. Quickly, you disabuse yourself of this idea because you need to be thinking about more strategic placements. How should I place my forest so that I could best use my woodcutter? And then after that, hopefully place a nearby military building that benefits off of all the plains the woodcutter produces. Every map you complete, you can add a new building to your deck, and it quickly becomes very overwhelming as to what you should choose. The game does provide you information on the terrain block tiles and what enemy military buildings will be present, so players can get an idea of what they might need. I found the idea unique, and I'd love to come back to play it for that alone, even if I don't end up sticking with it to see everything it has to offer.
I have to arrest you for driving under the influence of alcohol. Please move on to the sidewalk.
Please, officer.
So we received Bus Simulator in February, Construction Simulator just this past month, and now we get Police Simulator Patrol Officers. Is this the one that finally changes my mind on this genre of games? Well, I'm not sure I would go that far, but, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I really did enjoy playing Police Simulator. It starts off simple enough with your foot patrol checking on parked cars for expired plates and any sort of parking violation such as an expired parking meter or they're in a tow zone. Also, I had to keep on the lookout for jaywalkers and litterers. And I take my job seriously. Anyone and everyone who disobeyed the law got a fine. No verbal warnings from this man in blue.
I'm writing you a ticket for littering. That will be $25.
Is that it? Can I go now?
There was a certain satisfaction I had walking around and handing out tickets, which probably says more about me as a person than anything else. After each shift, you get a certain amount of points based on your successful police reports. There are points that will deduct from your score, but I didn't have any of those, save for the time that I got a game over because I discharged my firearm in an attempt to figure out how to get someone out of their car. Because, when in doubt, the answer must be to shoot someone. Obviously. Anyway, as you level up, you gain access to new ways to carry out justice, from scanning speeders with radar guns and taking accident reports. In an absolutely comical instance, I found that I could ticket people for having a broken windshield, despite the fact that they were just in a car accident.
Fine.
Like I said, I think this says a lot about me as a person. I probably need help. While there were plenty of confusing things that weren't really explained very well, or at times over-explained with information overload, I genuinely wanted to keep going to see what more I'd unlock and see new content. I think this is one of the first simulator games we've had in a while that I'd like to return to, and it even has multiplayer as well for those interested in that.
I have to fine you for littering, which will cost you $25.
I can't believe this has happened.
Neon White is a fast-paced, first-person shooter platformer that didn't win me over at first, but by the end of my hour I found myself really enjoying the game. And that's because it's a game where perfection is what you essentially want to achieve. Each level has medals awarded for certain time thresholds that you beat. In order to unlock new levels, you need to at least score a platinum or gold medal to improve your rank. This normally would be a huge turnoff for me, and I do wonder if I'd get to a point where it would feel really hard to progress because of my lack of skill. However, the game does things in a way to keep you playing. First off, as you finish levels, you can unlock hints where the game guides you where to go and try to achieve better times. Secondly, it's just fun. Neon White uses cards for your attacks, but also acts as movement abilities when discarded. For instance, the pistol is also a double jump, or the rifle can be used to set a bomb which can dispatch groups of enemies and propel you higher. The catch is that you could only have 2 types of cards in your hand at a time. At the moment, this hasn't been an issue, but I imagine later on I'll need to choose wisely. Overall, it's a clever system that had me thinking about how I might try to take shortcuts to complete levels faster. There's also a story here that revolves around Neon White, the titular main character, who's died and woke up in heaven. He's tasked with other Neons to clear out invading demons and get a chance to win redemption and a ticket into the big pearly gates. There's other Neons that he apparently knew but can't quite remember, and really that's about as far as I got. The voice acting is great though, and I was intrigued enough to want to learn more. There's even a bit of a relationship system where the collectibles you find in levels can be given to the people to raise their levels and learn more about them. All in all, it's one that I would definitely come back to, which is saying something for me. I wouldn't normally play something like this because of the time trial mechanic, but the rest of the game felt really solid and done in a way that it eased the player into it. The penultimate game is Tunic, an action-adventure game taking heavy inspirations from the likes of Legend of Zelda, along with some sprinkling of Souls-like and puzzle-solving elements. The game dumps you right into it as a fox. After a bit of exploring, you get your first weapon, a stick, and then you're pretty much off into the wide world. There's not really much of a story to the game other than through some non-dialogue cutscenes which seem to suggest the fox is trying to get back to their mother. There are some pages of a game manual that you find, but much of the text is written in the game's fictitious language. The tips and hints you could usually eke out from the pictures and the sparse bits of legible wording, however, I'm sure there's more than meets the eye. And I suppose this is where the game kind of loses me. I don't mind trying to decipher fake languages in a game when the game has mechanics in which to do so. For instance, Chants of Sonar back in March was excellent at this. However, Tunic doesn't have any of this. I'm not one to take out a piece of paper and try to cross-reference words and think of possible solutions on my own. So, I can't help feeling like maybe I'm missing out, but I suppose that's what the internet's for. Outside of that, despite the at-a-glance simplicity of the combat taken from a similar styled Zelda game, it's actually kind of difficult. The game expects you to die, which is where the Souls-like aspect comes into play, complete with timed dodges, learning enemy and boss attack patterns, bonfires, and of course the walk of shame back to your body to recover your souls, or golden cubes in this case. I'd also add that the world design was quite good too. Sure, there were typical shortcuts you'd open up like in other games like this, but the game was deceptive and clever in the use of its environment. Supposed shortcuts would be revealed to you as you play through the game, which were technically there all along, except you wouldn't notice it until you got to that certain point. I thought it was cool when these were revealed, but at the same time, it also made it hard to determine where you could or couldn't go at times, which I guess is the game's way of rewarding the most curious. Despite the vague story and cryptic language puzzle, I'd like to return to this one at some point. And finally, heading the bundle is Sea of Stars, or more specifically, Sea of Stars Sunset Edition. This has been on my wishlist for a long time now, and I'm glad to finally get my hands on it. Sabotage Studio is definitely one that puts a lot of love into the games they make, and are masters at making games that are inspired by classics, but spicing them up with their own creative flair. If you played The Messenger at all, then you know what I'm talking about. Instead of a side-scrolling action platformer, this time around we get an RPG inspired by the likes of Chrono Trigger. So much so that Sabotage even got Yasunori Mitsuda to compose some of the tracks for the game, who was the composer of Chrono Trigger's amazing soundtrack. And just to bring The Messenger back up, I want to go on record and say that game has one of the best soundtracks ever, and you should take a listen if you don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, Sea of Stars also brings a pixel art aesthetic that has a Super Nintendo charm, but with a modern touch with things like lighting and particle effects. Traversal was more interesting with many ways to get through the environment, which I thought was neat and allowed for some more interesting and light puzzle solving, as well as treasure finding. At a glance, the combat system looks very similar to its inspiration. There are no random battles or separate battle screens, but instead you see the enemies in the game world. There's initiative order and even combos where the characters can deal out special attacks in tandem, very reminiscent of Chrono Trigger's system. However, Sea of Stars takes it further and adds in a more active element to the fights. Each attack has its own timing where you can hit a button to do additional damage or take less damage. Furthermore, each of the special abilities also has this, as well as a sort of minigame tied to it, such as Valyr's tennis match with her moon boomerang. I thought it added to the combat to make it more exciting, however, I think the timing will be quite difficult for many of these animations, at least speaking for myself. For general attacks it wasn't that hard, but every enemy animation also had a particular timing. Or your combo attacks. Sometimes it was hard to determine when the right moment even was. I imagine there will be a lot of dying and retrying involved. That said, the game offers various difficulties as well as relics that could further tweak the difficulty, making it easier or harder. I turned on one relic that gave a spark of stars to let me know when I got the timing right, because I didn't think there was enough feedback for that. There's others that will do things like heal the party after every fight, and others to help players tweak the game how they want to play it. On another note, I wasn't aware of this, but in the year since the game's release, Sabotage Studio has made several huge free updates for the game, revamping combat, adding aforementioned difficulty levels, new cutscenes, 3-player co-op, and even a completely free DLC. It almost makes me feel bad for getting this game for such a steal and humble choice. Without a doubt, I definitely want to come back to this game, hopefully sooner rather than later. Okay, let's wrap this up and see if this bundle is worth it or not. I based my rating solely on whether I thought the game was worth playing on about an hour or so of hands-on gameplay. Also, I'd be grateful if you could please give the video a like if you're enjoying it, and subscribe if you want to see more video game coverage in the form of reviews, first impressions, and of course, these humble choice videos every month. And if you're feeling extra generous, then you could buy me a hot beverage via YouTube Super Thanks, or consider joining my YouTube membership. Every little bit goes a long way in helping improve the channel. Overall, this was a great month. I realize that for many there isn't really a show-stopping headliner that makes the bundle an immediate buy. However, the lineup that's here has a lot of quality and fun games that it would be crazy to pass it up if you're looking for that next unique indie title. I think the fact that I like both roguelites in this bundle is telling on just how much those games did to impress me. As July is my birthday month, I'm quite happy with how Humble Choice turned out. Starting us off with the must-plays this month, I've placed Sea of Stars in this spot. I think the game has such potential for me to be up there as one of the best games I've ever played. I still think fondly about The Messenger despite having played it several years ago, and it seems the studio has put in the same kind of love they gave that. Following up with the strong recommendations is almost the entire bundle, being Tunic, Neon White, Police Simulator Patrol Officers, Drop Duchy, Dicefolk, and Our Adventurers Guild. Tunic has a lot of Zelda charm that many will immediately gravitate to, along with some difficult combat, which admittedly may not be for everyone. Neon White was one of several games this month where I didn't expect to like it because of the time trial nature of each level. I'm still not entirely convinced, but the gameplay was fun and had an interesting game design to the mechanics, which once again is one of several games this month. Police Simulator is the first simulator game in a long time that I genuinely liked playing. The jank was minimal, and it was pretty satisfying to play, even just doing mundane tasks, which is the appeal of these types of games.
Let me have a look at your
Drop Duchy combines a beloved classic with a splash of strategy and puzzle solving, making it easily a memorable title even if the Tetris-style gameplay isn't your cup of tea. Dicefolk is another unique roguelite that gives you the ability to determine the enemy's actions through the dice, making for satisfying moments when you make a 400 IQ move. And finally, Our Adventurers Guild combines management with turn-based tactics that makes for a game with a fun combination that harken back to my time playing the Game Boy Advance Final Fantasy Tactics. I have no week recommendations this month, so that just leads us into the don't bother with for the month, which is Sledders. This is really only for Sledder enthusiasts and those kind of interested, but will probably only end up playing it for a short bit before getting bored. With no real gameplay objectives, I think it will turn off a lot of people to it, and that's only if they could even get over the handling of their snow machine. Do you agree with my thoughts? What games, if any, are you looking forward to playing? Let me know what your thoughts are, if there are any different recommendations you'd make in the comments below. I hope this video helped you in some small way, and if it did, then please consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, or whatever it is you feel like doing. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day.